XRP Green Candles. It's a simple title, but it gets the point across on what we're going to be talking about in today's update. We are following this 2017 fractal, which probably is going to take us to an all-time high either this week, next week. By the end of this month, all-time high for XRP looks like it's coming in. Following on that, if we continue following this fractal all the way through, we're talking about a double-digit XRP, 10, 15, maybe even $20. So stick around. Trump set to introduce crypto executive orders on day one. The SEC taking another massive loss in the courts here today once again. And we had a huge crypto liquidation event that happened this morning. Let's check out the recovery though, because XRP is already back up. And that's why I said XRP is printing green candles. You look at any time frame zoomed out longer than a couple hours, right? And what you're going to see is that XRP just had its highest yearly close ever. We just had a massive weekly close above $2.50. And despite the liquidation event this morning, we're back green again here on that weekly chart. So let's take a look at it, folks. Starting off here, just the scale of this liquidation event this morning, $420 million liquidated from the cryptocurrency market in the past 12 hours. So basically, as the markets opened up this morning, broader stock market and the crypto market getting drugged down, XRP did go with it. And so when I slide on over here to the XRP chart, what we notice is that XRP did come all the way down here to about $2.35. Basically 233 is what I'm 234. So big liquidation event for the overall markets, stocks, crypto, everything. XRP comes down to 234. But then look at this bounce all the way back up here to $2.55. And so when I slide on over here, zoomed out on our weekly chart, I got the 2017 fractal in the yellow candles. And what you can see here is that we are following this 2017 fractal perfectly. 3 red candles. And what we got lined up here is 4 green candles. We just did it with last week, closing here off at 250. So 2 green weeks in a row. We start off this new weekly candle. This morning we get a big liquidation event. Everybody freaks out. And I'm seeing way less people coming to the comments on my videos. And we used to see this all the time where XRP price would drop off by a few cents, 5 cents, 10 cents, right? And everybody would be rushing to the comments to tell us how bad we were, how XRP sucks, crying, whining, and complaining. Now, when we've been getting these pullbacks, we still get a couple comments, couple negative Nancy's pop in. But then, they come on back a few hours later and I just come on back and I say, hey, check that chart again, because you might not need to be crying anymore. Okay, you might be able to put your big boy and big girl pants on and hopefully you scooped up these dips, because when you get them, the market makers and the BlackRocks and the big boys and girls are taking advantage of it. And those who are going to, get fudded out, you're not going to make it in this crypto game at all, right? But what we're seeing right now on XRP, the setup is just absolutely spectacular. The strength and resilience of XRP on display. And it's looking better than almost every other digital asset as far as that resiliency. And the strength and the outlook for basically the next month, really looking fantastic. Now, speaking of the next month, here in just a couple weeks, Trump's coming in, and now the rumors are circulating that he's expected to issue executive orders related to crypto policies on his first day in office. So right from day one, we're getting to work. It is looking fantastic. Speaking of getting to work, I actually went through and I skimmed through this bill, the Fair Tax Act of 2025, introduced by Buddy Carter, that would eliminate federal income, payroll, estate, and gift taxes. I went through and read that because I was interested on a few points. The recommendation, or basically the proposal, would implement a 23% consumption tax or sales tax, a national sales tax, which I thought was too high. It's like, yeah, I love the start of this. We start off this conversation eliminating income, payroll, estate, and gift tax, but then we implement a 23% consumption national sales tax. That's too far. And I wanted to see what else they might have slipped into this bill. In particular, in relation to, folks that already have debts and how that would be handled going forward. Basically, what would be the transition? They don't really outline it, but what I did go find here in this bill, I actually went and read it, is this portion right here. Phasing out of administration of repealed federal taxes. And they specifically say that appropriations for any expenses of the IRS, including processing tax returns for years prior to the repeal of the taxes repealed by Title I of this act, revenue accounting, management, transfer of payroll and wage data to the Social Security Administration for years after fiscal year 2029 shall not be authorized. So basically, no more money's going to the IRS. If this bill gets passed as it's written right now, no more money's going to the IRS for these previous tax years. Basically, this year, 2025, 2026, all the way out. And they basically phase this in into 2029. And so they don't really outline. I also asked Grok. I went to X and asked Grok, how would this, basically transition over? And it doesn't really outline it. It suggested go reading the bill. So that's what I did. And this is what I'm finding. And so, if this goes through, we're talking about opening up Pandora's box, America 2.0 revisited. This is going to be just something to watch. Once again, we're getting to work on crypto. We're getting to work on taxes. We're getting to work on deregulation. We're going to stop these wars. There is so much good on the way. But in the meantime, we know what they're lining up and what they're trying to do to stop us from being able to swing us back in the right direction as a country. So we'll be watching this closely. Fascinating consideration what's being proposed here in this bill. Now, massive loss for the SEC was handed out here by the Third Circuit Court here. This is in the Coinbase case, and so Paul Gerwal here, the chief legal officer of Coinbase, says we just won our petition for a writ of mandamus at the Third Circuit, rebuking the SEC for its order denying our rulemaking petition. The court held that, quote, the SEC's order was conclusory and insufficiently reasoned, and thus arbitrary and capricious. So once again, the SEC being called arbitrary and capricious. And the court grants Coinbase's petition in part and remand to the SEC for a more complete explanation. So that is looking good. David Schwartz shares this clip right here. So the SEC's haphazard enforcement strategy of targeting entities that are trying to follow the law does not give potential defendants the notice that due process requires. That is especially true because of the field being novel. The agency has offered no meaningful guidance on which crypto asset it views as securities, other than that free pass that Ethereum got, other than the opinion that Bitcoin is not a security, right? They've offered no other guidance. The Dow report gives guidance only about the clearest crypto assets, tokens that look just like stocks, but what about stablecoins, utility tokens, or even Bitcoin and Ether? Existing rules do not fit blockchain technology, but the SEC refuses to recognize this. Its official silence and contradictory, unofficial signals breed uncertainty. Crypto issuers and exchanges are left to cross their fingers and pray that the agency does not fault them. So this is a quote directly from that. Stuart Alderati adding on, huge congrats. In Gensler's final days, his anti-crypto crusade is imploding, and a federal appeals court has laid bare what the industry has said for years. His selective enforcement of securities laws was a not-so-covert attempt to ban the industry outright, and is absolutely shameful. So this about says it all right here. He circles and highlights this portion. New inventions create new fraud risks, and the agency needs to guard against them. But sporadically enforcing ill-fitting rules against crypto companies that are trying to follow the law goes way beyond fighting fraud. It targets a whole industry and risks de facto banning it. On remand, the SEC must grapple with that problem. So the court really put them on blast. Fred Rispoli does note, though, that Coinbase emphatically did not win this case. They basically only won on this point, right? It lost on almost every argument, only starts winning on page 38, and what it did win on, the SEC did not provide a sufficient reason for denying petition, can be remedied by the SEC upon remand. But interestingly, he notes there is a phenomenal concurrence by Judge Bibas on page 50, and this judge actually really just scorched the SEC in his response. That it is exactly what, in relation to what the Ripple case is appealing as well. That old musty, dusty, crusty rules from a century ago don't work for crypto. Quote, as I explained, its old regulations fit poorly with this new technology, and its enforcement strategy raises constitutional notice concerns. If the Second Circuit adopts this line of reasoning, the SEC is done for good with crypto. So before Trump gets in, before the most pro-crypto Congress that we've ever had gets in, the SEC is taking another massive loss in the courts here today. Now, they did win overall in this case, and what is being determined here. But once again, the SEC being put on blast for trying to expand their jurisdiction to where it has not been outlined by Congress. It is unconstitutional. It is arbitrary and capricious. And the SEC is being told this here once again in the courts. Shouldn't have to be this way, but this is what we're up against. And so a huge shout out to Coinbase and their legal team for this fight. One of many companies here that's now stood up, just like Ripple, just like the XRP army. And now we are finding ourselves another victory to hang our hat on, and another victory that we can use in our defense against this SEC, which all of this really looks like it's coming to an end here soon with Trump and the pro-crypto Congress. But in the meantime, it is reassuring to get another victory for the crypto industry. Now, while all this is happening, massive adoption is still taking place, and the SEC is not stopping that. BlackRock says that crypto has now outpaced growth for mobile phones and the internet. So with these tech revolutions, the massive adoption is here, but the current run rate, the current rate at which this adoption is taking place is surpassing mobile phones and the internet. We're still trying to really grapple, I think, with how big this is going to be. And as I've talked about in some of my most recent updates, you still got TradeFi guys, right? Traditional finance guys that are trying to value these technologies like stocks. And this is where they're missing, and they're going to completely miss out on the gains as they're trying to wrap their head around how to value the company Ripple, how to value XRP. And, those that are leaning into this, like BlackRock, well, they're taking the margin share, the lion's share of this opportunity with this new asset class. And meanwhile, we're seeing that the SEC is basically protecting the incumbents, tripping up and stalling up the new kids on the block like Ripple, while giving BlackRock and others time to move in with their ETFs, with their custody solutions, so that they can basically control this opportunity. It's just like JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon this morning, or basically yesterday on 60 Minutes, saying that Bitcoin is still a Ponzi scheme with no intrinsic value, but he's still happy to provide services on the back end of crypto offerings and ETFs. That's how the game is played. That's how it works. While they downplay it as being pet rocks, Ponzi schemes, and having no legitimacy, they're still willing to sell the assets to you. Don't you love how that works? But for once, the little guy hasn't had to go through a JP Morgan, hasn't had to go through a Morgan Stanley or some Wall Street intermediary to get access to these opportunities. And for once, the little guy can win on a level playing field. And in fact, we're seeing these opportunities and taking advantage of these opportunities before the Wall Street boys and girls have made it and came into this asset class. So this is the setup, and it's absolutely looking fantastic. We're going to go back into now where XRP's at, and you're going to see here, this is Cointelegraph that's getting in on the hype. XRP price eyes a 60% gain in the coming days after breaking out of its prevailing symmetrical triangle pattern following Ripple's court win to seal documents in the SEC case. So Ripple's already working on sealing up some of these documents. We're just 2 days away now on Wednesday when the appeal briefs are due. If they don't get filed, the case is done. So we could be less than 48 hours away from the conclusion of this SEC versus Ripple lawsuit, and XRP's already running up in anticipation of that, along with Gary Gensler resigning and Trump being inaugurated. And so where exactly are we at? 2017 fractals have now been followed for 10 straight weeks from Bassy, Crypto Bassy here on X. So for 10 straight weeks, we have been following the 2017 fractals. With this week's close and the timeline expected, if we continue to follow, we should see all-time highs this week, which is why I simply just put the title as XRP Green Candles, baby, because we're printing them and we're just getting started. As mentioned in my previous post, don't forget that XRP is perfectly capable of eye-melting green candles. How does that sound? That sounds good to me. Our target right now is $8 to $10 in the next 2 weeks. 360% from current levels. You want another 3x? You want another 3x for your XRP bag? It could very well be on the way between now and the end of the month. Very doable based on prior movement. This is what I'm expecting from the fractals. I'm not changing anything. I'm going to follow the plan. Do not get sucked into hype or into fear. Execute without emotion. And that's well said. That's the plan, and I'm sticking to my plan as well. Regardless of what happens, the next 2 weeks are going to be very, very fun. And so right here, following this chart, and I'm going to flip it back to my chart over here. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks in a row. And that was, 5 weeks of green, 3 weeks in the red. That was following the fractal. That was expected. A little bit of a pullback consolidation, bull flag being printed. And now we're getting the breakout. 1, 2, 3, and we get another 4th green candle coming up here. So we got this week and next week, which are set to be green candles. Are we going to go all the way up here to this level of 23 bucks? I don't see that happening. But what I do see is that we're following green candles are set to get printed right here. So we got another green candle coming up this week, which means that we're going to be higher than $2.50. Despite the liquidation event that we saw this morning, down to $2.35 for XRP, we're already back up, showing strength, and the weekly candle here is still flipped green. So we're looking for XRP to push up towards $3 and breaking above that all-time high between now and the end of the month. Targets ranging all the way from $5 to $10. And this is in store because coming up here in the next couple weeks. So I want to make sure you guys are prepared. This is what we're seeing from the technicals. What we're seeing on the fundamentals is fantastic. What we're looking at from a legal competitive advantage is unseen by anybody else in the cryptocurrency space besides XRP and the setup that we have, the clarity that we have. While everybody else is still tied up in the courts, it's smooth sailing for us. And this is lining us up right for, in the next 48 hours, a potential conclusion in the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit. But even if we don't get that case conclusion, we're still lining up to go set a new all-time high by the end of this month. So strap yourselves in, get tapped in with our community. If you're new here, make sure you guys have subscribed, hit that notification bell, because we're not going anywhere, and this is when the real work begins. It was one thing. It was one thing to stack these assets while we were trending sideways, while we were consolidating for the past 6-7 years, or even if you're new here, and we were just consolidating for the past month and a half, right? You had 3 last opportunities to pick up XRP below $2. Now we're off to the races, set to break up into all-time high price discovery, and we may be entering in a reality now where we never go back below $3 ever again. I think we're at a point where we never go back below $2. Going here forward, we enter into a new territory, we set a new floor price, we might not ever be back below $3 once again. So if you're asking whether or not you're too late, the answer is no, in my opinion. But as always, you need to understand your circumstances, your exit strategy for XRP, whether or not this asset class is good for you, because like we've seen, these assets can move 10 to 20% in a day. And folks, focus on the green candles. Those candles can also turn red. And if you can't stomach that, you're not going to be doing so well in this cryptocurrency space. We've leaned into that volatility. We've leaned into the 50% downside because we knew that the 500% upside was available and coming. Now we've lived it, and as I'm showing you here on the charts, we still have a few more multiples to grow before this bull runs over for XRP. So I'm going to wrap up this call here now. I appreciate you guys for stopping by, and if you appreciate our content, you guys know how to help me out. Everything's linked up down below in the description, or you can head on over to ZachRector.com. We got you covered. Appreciate your support. God bless you all. Thank you. I am your host, Zach Rector. I really appreciate all of the love and support. If you want to support the channel, just remember that you can start by smashing that thumbs up for me, sharing this content far and wide, and everything else is at my website.